I do not own the rights to this music. Hello, and welcome to Sunday School Summary with Brother Ron, Sunday School lesson for Sunday, October the 30th, 2022. Our reference material for the Sunday School Summary is based upon the International Sunday School Lesson Series as published by the Sunday School Publishing Board. We are discussing God's Exceptional Choice as the title of the Fall Lesson Series, and it is a discussion of the continuous progression of God's grace and mercy working through salvation in the lives of Abraham and his descendants to Jesus and the early church. God chose unexpected and character-flawed people in Abraham's line to lead the children of Israel during times of crisis in order to fulfill God's covenant promise to Abraham and even to the deliverance of our ancestors from bondage. The Fall Lesson Series is categorized into 3 units or groups of lessons, and we are in Unit 2, and we are discussing Out of Slavery to Nationhood. Out of Slavery into Nationhood explores the call of Israel's family out of Egypt to become a great nation. The title of Unit 2 Fall Lesson Series is titled The Heart of a Leader. The Heart of a Leader. And we're talking about what is in the leader's heart and what does God see in leadership. The key verse comes from 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 7, and it reads, The Lord said unto Samuel, Look not on his countenance or on the height of stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord sees not as a man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. So we as humans, we are motivated by what we see, whereas the Lord is motivated by the heart of an individual. The title of today's lesson, The Heart of a Leader, from the 1 Samuel, is a continuation of the story of God's covenant promise to bless Abraham and to make his descendants into a great nation. After the leadership of Moses and Joshua, God appointed special judges to lead, which means to judge or govern, the people through divine guidance. However, subsequent generations did not always obey God, and as a result, the people drifted into cycles of sin, oppression, and repentance after God's deliverance. During this period of Israel's history, the last judge appointed by God was the prophet Samuel. Samuel was a capable and godly judge. However, his decline in old age, coupled with his decision to appoint his corrupt sons as judges, led the people to reject God's judge's form of government and request a king just like their neighbors' nations in Canaan. Samuel prayed to God, and God granted their request. And God directed the prophet Samuel to transition the leadership of Israel from the prophet Samuel and selected King Saul in last week's lesson, which brings us to today's lesson. And as we recall, in last week's lesson, the people were ecstatic about the selection of King Saul. But it was a learning moment because King Saul, even though he had the stature, he did not have the heart of a leader. There are 2 summary lesson points for today. It's a matter of the heart from 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 1 through 7, and listening to God's voice from 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 8 through 13. The passages for the lesson today revolve around the key words of faith, hearken, heart, and prophet. And we says that faith is the complete trust, assurance, belief, or confidence in God. And the prophet Samuel emphasizes the blessings of those who remain obedient and faithful to the Lord. Now, hearken is to hear, heed, or to pay attention to. So when we are in lessons today, we are listening to God, and He is telling us to pay attention to the intentions or the heart of an individual versus the outward appearance. The heart, and here when we're talking about the heart, scientifically, it is the center of life. It's an organ that pumps life-sustaining blood through the body. Spiritually, it is the center of our emotions, reason, and will. And the heart is synonymous with affection and love. Prophet, and that's one who speaks by divine inspiration or as the interpreter through whom the will of God is expressed, such as the prophet Samuel in today's lesson. Our first summary point is it's a matter of the heart, and that's from 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 1 through 7. And in these passages, the Lord said unto Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel?" And he told Samuel to fill your horn with oil and be on your way, and I'm going to send you to Jesse in Bethlehem. And he says that I have chosen one of his sons to be king. But Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me." The Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord." So the Lord is directing Samuel as to how he should handle King Saul. Samuel did what the Lord said. When he arrived in Bethlehem, the elders of the town trembled because they thought that he had come to judge them. And they asked, "Do you come in peace?" And Samuel replied that he did come in peace. And he said that he had came to make a sacrifice to the Lord. And he told them to consecrate themselves or to cleanse and make themselves holy for this sacrifice. And then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. And when they came, they arrived. Samuel saw Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord anointed stands before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And as we recall in last week's lesson, the children of Israel thought that King Saul was the greatest because of his stature. As you remember, he was a head above, taller or above the rest. So he had the image and he had the projection, but he did not have the will and the intent in his heart to be led under the direction of God. So we have to be careful when we place our faith in people who may look good and who may appear to be smart and all of that, but we do not know their intentions. The bottom line is that we should seek God's understanding and guidance as to how we approach situations and how we approach and deal with people. Our second summary point is listening to God's voice, and that's from 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 8 through 13. And in these passages, we are arriving at the selection of the king through divine inspiration through Samuel. And he says after he's arrived in Bethlehem and consecrated the sacrifice, he says he called Amminadab and had him pass in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, "The Lord has not chosen this one either." And Jesse then had Shammah pass by, but Samuel said, "Nor has the Lord chosen this one." And Jesse had 7 of his sons to pass by. And the response was the same, that the Lord has not chosen any of these. So at this point, Samuel is kind of confused. So he asked Jesse, "Are these all the sons that you have?" And Jesse said that he had a younger son, but I'm sure his response was, "Surely you're not looking for him, because he's the least of all of these." And Samuel said, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." And David is selected, which is an unlikely choice. So he sent for him and brought him, and he was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him." So David had the Spirit of the Lord upon him. So Samuel anointed him, and he was to become king. The point is that the Lord went through a process to arrive at the right choice. And we as Christians, we too have to arrive at a process, to go through a process to make sure that we are making the right choice based upon our faith and consultation with God. So those are the summary lesson points for Sunday, October the 30th, 2022. It's a matter of the heart from 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 1 through 7, and listening to God's voice from 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 8 through 13. To summarize it, we should look to the heart of an individual as opposed to the outward appearance of the individual, and we should go through a process listening to God to arrive at our godly decisions concerning our leaders. This is Brother Ron with the Sunday School Summary for Sunday, October the 30th, 2022. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed day, and we hope to see you next Sunday for another edition of Sunday School Summary with Brother Ron.